We are here at AVE Gallery in Lucerne, and I'm standing here with Fereydoun AVE. He's an Iranian-born artist, and he's very important for the Iranian contemporary art scene. And now he's gonna tell us something about his life. You've been helping to rebuild the Iranian contemporary art scene after the revolution. Could you please tell us something about that period of your life?
Sure. It wasn't very difficult to be a pioneer at that time because because there was nobody else. It was anyway, the art community was a very small one, and it felt very threatened with the revolution. A lot of people left. A lot of people stopped doing whatever they were doing. A lot of people went underground for no reason, because nobody knew what to expect. To call me a pioneer is probably an overstatement. But what I can existentially say happened was I was left. I had my studio, I had my friends who were also artists, and I couldn't do anything else but work. And I tried to encourage them to work. And then there was a space. At the time, if there was an empty house or an empty space, the Revolutionary Guards would come and take it, like as if it was abandoned. So there was this wonderful, simple space. It was a garage that was perfect for a studio, small, manageable. But it had a garage door which actually gave out onto one of the main, not a main thoroughfare, not an autobahn or anything, but a street where there was quite a bit of traffic, human traffic. And I decided to set up my studio there and work. Admittedly, it was difficult. No, it wasn't difficult. It was easy to work because you knew nobody was going to show you. There was nowhere to show. There was, it probably had a very good resonance in the fact that you weren't aiming at a commercial outlet or at an exhibition or any of those things, because there was no such thing at the time. The official museums were only showing calligraphy and revolutionary photography, which means photography of the revolution. And then the Iran-Iraq war photography. And since I was not interested in doing one or the other, there was absolutely no risk of me showing. Also, the last work of mine that the Museum of Modern Art had acquired for their permanent collection had been one of the 7 angels. In pre-Islamic mythology, there are 7 angels that protect everything on earth. And these 7 angels I portrayed by putting 2 very large pieces of paper next to each other, laying somebody down on the paper and doing an outline, drawing an outline, and then working on the inside and working on the outside, the negative positive space that was created by their outline. this was the piece that was in the Museum of Modern Art collection. So when the Islamic Guards or whoever it was that took over the Museum of Modern Art, they picked out all the artists that they figured were figurative and were doing nude bodies. There was nothing nude about the body. It was a body, it was an outline of the body, and if they'd seen my other works, they would have realized that this was just limited to that particular series. But anyway, I had also heard that I couldn't show my works. There were a series of artists that were listed as people who were not allowed to show their works. Now, all of this was through gossip. None of it was official. There was nowhere a list put up saying, you know, these are blacklisted artists and these are okay artists and so forth. So no. It was always, as almost everything is in Iran, through hearsay and gossip rather than factual declaration of any sort. But as we all know, gossip travels much faster and has much more effect than fact, because it's more titillating, gossip than fact. So those things led to my working very privately in this space that I was trying to save, which then eventually, obviously I wasn't there all alone all the time. Once I'd do something and I'd ask 2 or 3 of my other artist friends to come and have a look, and eventually it started becoming a very, very small, under the radar, private space where artists would come to talk to artists and look at each other's works, and they'd bring their students and so forth. And that developed into 13 Van Eyck Street, which was one of the non-commercial, non-gallery, non-exhibition spaces, but a learning, experimenting, private club. Very private club. I mean, when I say private, I really mean like 20, 30 people. But that was enough, because Tehran at the time, maybe the art community was that small. Now we're talking 30 years ago, right at the beginning of the revolution, not 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So organically, that space had its own lifespan. And organically, it died because it became so popular and it acquired such a status of being a non-commercial space and being a space where you could experiment at. Because when people would come and show me their works and say, can we show it there? I would say, if you can show it anywhere else, show it anywhere else. If you can't show it anywhere else, yes, you can show it there. Because I couldn't be, for me it was never a commercial prospect, or I didn't want to be a salesman, I didn't want to be a dealer, I didn't want to be any of those things. And part of the reason why my collection became so big during the revolution was to nurture and financially make independent a lot of these artists that would come to show, that I would realize they really were obsessed with doing art, obsessed with experimenting, but didn't have the financial support to do it. So I would buy their works, because it's sort of insulting to give, I think, it creates inequality just to give charity, to give people money, because it makes you, it separates things. There's nothing equal there. But when you respect somebody's talent and you show it by buying their work, then there's a equality, then there's a certain balance there. So I suppose when they say pioneer and all of those things, which, you know, those are just words that really need definition. But what I did was basically that. And because of the space, I had to look at artists' works. So I created another space, which was my swimming pool, which at the beginning of the revolution, nobody could use their swimming pools because you had to walk from the house, if it was an outside swimming pool, which most of them were because of the nice weather in Tehran, you had to walk from the house to the swimming pool in your swimming costume. And then the neighbors, who were usually not your usual neighbors, but neighbors, a house that was empty and the Islamic Guard has taken it or whatever, would then call up the police station and say there's somebody naked offending my moral sense walking. And it was jealousy. It was that setting people against people to showing that they were different and so forth. And so the swimming pool became totally unusable. This wonderful Olympic-sized swimming pool, it was like 10 by 20 meters. I commissioned a young architect who also was in that category of experimentation, of nurturing somebody. I said, okay, you want to try out one of your designs? Put a roof over this swimming pool, very discreetly, very cheaply, with available materials, because at the time importing stuff into Iran was difficult. And that's where I held. He did a wonderful job. He went on to win many architectural prizes, and he's one of the main important architects in Iran at the moment. And that space became sort of a master's class where twice a week for 4 hours, anybody, which was unusual then, because if you didn't know people, you don't let them into your space or your house. But I didn't consider the swimming pool my house or my space. It was outside of that, it was neutral. I had some things on the wall. I had a line of furniture I designed for different people because we couldn't get furniture into the country. Simple furniture. I put that and some of my collection, and the collection became bigger and bigger because of the people who showed in the other space. And there we had what I call master's classes, but it wasn't really that. It was just anybody who wanted to talk about their work. So when they say that I nurtured and pioneered or helped a lot of the artists that are now important and can stand on their own 2 feet very, very well, and most of them I'm very, very proud of, would come and show me their works, and that's where sort of started. And then if I thought the work was experimental and had the qualities to teach and to learn from, both for the artists and for the other young people that would come to see, we would show it in the other space, 13 Van Eyck Street. But we would never have an opening date, we would never have a closing date, we wouldn't have hours, none of those things, and no invitation card. They would call up each other, and it would be a totally improvised, private situation. The only time we attracted attention was there was performance and an installation done by two girls, and they just happened to have a lot of friends. 1,000 people showed up to this tiny street. Well, it wasn't such a tiny street, but to get into this tiny space, and they blocked the road, and then the police arrived. Why is the road blocked? And then they said, what is going on? And before, nobody knew what was going on. And of course, even after, they didn't know what was going on, because they walked in and there was a little video recorder and a TV, and unfortunately, one of the girls was lying in the window with many, many layers of white cloth over her and then flowers on top of it, like a burial thing. And she had to get up and answer the policeman's questions. At these points, they would call me and I would arrive and say, I'm sorry if we're causing a disturbance. It's just a little exercise, and immediately we'd close. There'd be no argument, because I didn't want any sort of engagement, any sort of explanation to be made, nothing. I just wanted to say, sorry, you don't want this open, we'll close. It's a garage, we'll close it. And that's what happened the only time that... Oh, there was one other time too. Somebody was bringing the stuff to install in the... I never call it gallery, because it was never a gallery, in that experimental space, and they had parked in the wrong place. And the policeman came and gave him a ticket and said, what are you doing? And he was bringing in polling booths where you vote, because he was doing a whole installation and a whole, a whole performance installation around voting.
So, thank you very much.
So that's the pioneer thing. Of course, there are certain things that the biography doesn't say, like my being an assistant to Cy Twombly, and okay, the assistantship isn't that important, but the fact that he was the person that completely changed my vision about visual arts and artists, and we became great friends, and I miss him terribly. And of course, he wasn't the only one, but he was definitely the main person. There are lots of people, fortunately. Okay, not that many people. 5 people, maybe, in my whole time that you really come across, and you... it's not like an electric shock, it's like a charge. It's like being recharged just by meeting them or seeing their work. Sometimes actually they confuse you by meeting them, but seeing their work, you understand that patience and a certain hollowness of ego is required so the creative energy can flow. Yeah, that's as concise as I can put it, I think. Yeah. Anything else you want to know?